Welcome to Kicking Ass with Tanner Stone. On this episode, we will have a special guest named Kirk Felici. He is the managing director of Horvath and Tremblay. Let's get right into it. Hi.
Hey, boys.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
You got it.
Yeah, you have the best daughter ever. Amazing teacher.
Depends on which one you're talking about. I have two. I have to be diplomatic on that.
You want to tell a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, sure. So I think I grew up in a small town. Kind of had this was before technology, before all this stuff. So there was a lot of technology and stuff along the way. Grew up in a small town, went to a small school, lived in a town that didn't have a stoplight in it. There were more cows than there were people. So it was kind of country, so to speak. And then I went to college in a big city, primarily to learn a little bit about what that would look like. And then I was born in California, moved back to Massachusetts when I was 3. So when I graduated college, I wanted to live in California. So I moved to California and started before there was a computer, looking at the newspaper and through classified ads, and was calling all kinds of different job opportunities, and landed a job working and selling cosmetics. So I cover girl cosmetics, so lipstick, eyeshadow. All my friends thought that was kind of weird, but I was like, well, a lot of the clients that buy stuff are beautiful women, so it worked out. And then I got the opportunity to work for a radio station, a rock and roll radio station, selling radio advertising. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I kind of wanted to get closer to home, moved back to New England, and took a position in sales, always in sales, with a precious metals company, selling gold, silver, platinum, and palladium to jewelry manufacturers and electronic manufacturers, and had some success there, but I was always capped at the amount of income. I was kind of tied to a salary. And my wife had an opportunity to take a job, a CEO position in Florida, so we moved as a family to Florida. And we had bought houses and sold houses as kind of like a side kind of investment opportunities to make money and get ahead of our mortgage. And so I caught the real estate bug back then, and then decided that once when we moved to Florida, looked for a new job and started my career in real estate and never looked back.
How did you get into real estate in Florida?
So that's a good question. And so I think that I knew that I wanted, actually it started with the sales manager of the company that I work for in precious metals. And when I told them we were leaving and we were moving to Florida, they didn't really have any customers down here, so I couldn't work for the company any longer. And he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. He said, well, you keep talking about these houses and stuff that you keep buying, and you seem like really excited about real estate. And that's kind of what got it started. And I said, you know what? Yeah, let me look into that. So I took 2 months, and I said I knew I didn't want to do residential. I didn't want to sell houses. I wanted to sell commercial properties and properties that had more business, had more of a business acumen to it.
And why didn't you want to do houses? What made you choose commercial?
Well, the difference between residential and commercial is residential is very subjective, meaning that it's really at the eye of the buyer. Do you like the neighborhood or the school district that it's in, or the color of the walls, or that type of thing. And on the commercial side, it's more analytical. So if you think about commercial real estate, which I didn't know at the time, it's really about investing and getting a return on your investment. And I remember driving when I lived in the Northeast, would drive to Manhattan and see these huge buildings, but I didn't know that they were people owned them and they made income from them. So I didn't want, and I wanted something more business oriented, which was commercial, was not residential. I didn't like the subjectivity to residential. I wanted something that you could analyze and figure out on a more business approach to it.
Did you do residential real estate?
Nope, just buying properties, fixing them up, and selling them.
And for that, you needed a real estate license?
No. As an owner, you didn't need a real estate license, but to represent owners of properties, you need to have a real estate license.
Would you say you learned everything you learned right now in college, or did you have a mentor when you were getting to where you wanted to be?
So, great question. I would say what I learned in college was the social aspect of interacting with people. None of the Well, I don't want to say that. There are some classes that has helped in business, but most everything that I learned in college, I don't really use in business today.
So you're saying you learned more connections than the school stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things. I mean, like obviously, if you're analyzing cash flows and real estate, you need to know math. But it's basic math. Like calculus hasn't helped me. A lot of the classes that you have to take didn't help. But I think, on a broader aspect, I think, college gets you to, I just had a conversation with the owner of our company about we look for people as we recruit, hire, and train people with college degrees, not necessarily for the degree, but primarily to the type of people that we're looking for that will start something and then finish it. Right. So to persevere, college isn't the easiest thing. You see a lot of dropouts in college, and so we're looking for people that have a goal, right? And to get a degree in college is a goal, and for them to stick it out and accomplish that goal is I think is a good precursor to setting up in college, setting up in life. So it's not necessarily the degree or what you learned, but I think it's the experience and the accomplishment of it. So, I mean, I'm about to hire someone, kind of breaking that tradition, who doesn't have a college degree, but he is, he seems like he has a passion to build a business. So we would.
So the people your business hires, it's really about dedication. It's not really how smart you are. It's if you have a goal and something you want to be. And usually you find those people from college.
It depends on whether you want to be. Do you want to work for someone or do you want to work for yourself? Right. If you want to work for someone, you're going to get direction on the things that they want to accomplish, the corporate goals. And if you want to be an entrepreneur and work for yourself, you have to be self-motivated. So 98% of all of us all work for someone. 2% of us, have, the ability to create a pathway for themselves.
What do you think the top three things that help you get to where you are today right now?
Well, I think just to have like an overall idea of what it is what you're doing and why you're doing it. So you got to understand what that is. And I have a saying about being successful. People can describe success in a lot of different ways, but ultimately it's whether it's athletics or sports and accomplishments there, or in business, or within a relationship with a person. What is that? And so successful people typically do what unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. So it's for you to be able to define that for yourself as to what that looks like.
So what is success to you?
It for me is to be able to support a family, put a roof over our heads, and not worry about where the next meal is coming from. So I've had from a young age, I'll just personally. So I'm not advocating this for everyone, but for me personally, for some reason I had a phobia of growing old and running out of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think part of it was when I was working in the precious metals field, there was a gentleman there who was way overweight, and he was just not the happiest person, and he made a comment to me like 3 more years, and I'm like, 3 more years, what does that mean? He said 3 more years and I will have my house paid off. And he was basically working, and I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to have to be thinking about what happens if I can't afford a place to live. And so I don't know why I have that, but I've been working since I was 14 years old, cutting grass and doing whatever I could. And my grandmother took me to a credit union, which is like a bank, and I would take my money, my $7 or whatever it was back then, and we would put it into the bank account. And I started a bank account early on. So,
were you very social when you were younger, or you just very dedicated to what you wanted to do?
Well, I was going to do a math problem. I mean, I think what you're asking me is, and I didn't do it in preparation, but I think that, I hear a lot about this work-life balance, and I think that you have to have some of that. I think you have to define it, and I think you have to decide when do you want it. So early on, I decided that I wanted to front load, okay, my time and my efforts and work 60-hour weeks, and give up some of the social aspects so that when I get to a point later in life. So if you look at kind of like your work life, right? Your first 20 years, your second 20 years, and then your third 20 years, okay? It's, you have your first 20 years, someone told me this a long time ago, is to learn, okay, right? You have 20 years to earn, and then you have 20 years to burn, right? And so, like, if you like, I've talked to some people. If you have a regular job and you work 40 hours a week and you average that out through their lifespan until they're 65 or 67 now when they can retire, how many hours that is, right? Versus if you work 60 hours a week in your first 20 years, okay, and then you work 20 hours a week, okay, until you turn 50, and then you don't have to work ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which do you want, right? And it's really that's the personal choice part.
Is that what kept you going, like throughout the 60 hours work weeks you do?
Yep, it was. So you have to, yeah, that was for a bigger game, playing a bigger game, right? And so it was like I'm gonna sack anyone. So whatever, whoever you guys talk to in life that's been successful or has success, the sacrifice that has to go along with it, unless you're born into it. Right, any self-made person that there's a level of sacrifice. I mean, look what you guys are doing. You guys could be out, playing basketball or whatever, and you're here.
What do you think we're doing after this?
Well, you can do whatever you want to, right? Isn't that the whole point, right?
Yeah.
But for right now, it's like you guys have an idea of what you're looking to do and learn, and you're taking some time that you could be doing other things, probably a little bit more social than talking to me, right? And doing that. So there's some dedication there and some sacrifice that you have to make.
I feel like right when I got to 17, that's when I really saw that things were getting serious. I was just getting out of high school and I had to pick a goal that I want to stick with. So I totally agree on what you mean, that you have to focus on a path and you can't just mess around for the rest of your life.
That's easier said than done.
Yeah.
And, there's some pathways that are a lot more clearly defined than other ones. And that, I mean, if you want to be a doctor or an attorney or an athlete, right, there's a certain pathway and that you become a doctor or an attorney or, certain things. And then there's a lot of us, we don't know what we want, right? And so, you hear a lot of people say, find something that you're passionate about, right? And then you never have to work a day in your life. Well, a lot of people don't know what that is. And, a wise person once said, how do you know your passion until you do it? Right? And so a lot of times you have to try different things, unless you have like that defined pathway. Like I don't know if you guys wanted to be broadcasters or something like that. There's certain things that you can learn and proactively do to learn your skill sets in order to be able to do that versus you try that for a little bit and it's like, what, this isn't really what I thought it was. Then you maybe try something else. Maybe you become a producer or you become a screenwriter or a movie actor, right? And it takes you into different pathways, and then you find that passion after you've been able to do that.
Did you always want to go into real estate, or did you have a different goal you wanted to do when you were younger?
No, it wasn't. I mean, I think as far as my idea of real estate was, it's, there's certain basics in life, like food, shelter. So I always thought like real estate as kind of like shelter and having a place to live. And, and it wasn't until I got older that I understood, the business side of real estate and the financial side of it. And it was something that kind of really sparked my interest, but that was, later in life. It wasn't something that I knew right out of high school or college that I wanted to do. I wish I did. I don't have a lot of regrets, but I think if I could do it all over again, I would have tried to gotten into this career earlier.
So you really enjoy working every single day?
Right now, yeah. So I don't consider it work right now, because it's, I enjoy. So what I primarily do is coaching. Right. So a lot of the people that I work with are all independent contractors. So when you talk about real estate, it's a commission based compensation, right? You don't get a salary. You have to you kind of eat what you kill. And if what I was talking about before is in a job, they kind of cap how much money you can make, and if you work for yourself or on a commission basis, the more you sell, the more money you can make, and there's no ceiling to that. And so that's what I wanted. I had worked for big companies, and I always thought that I wanted to make more money, but there wasn't a pathway for me to do that. Mm-hmm. So it required me to kind of look outside of my comfort zone to look at things that, and going into, it's like doing gymnastics or trapeze without a net. When you're in a commission based income, you have to rely on yourself to perform.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, the better you are, the more you do, the more that you can make and earn.
For those that want to get started into commercial real estate, what would be a good piece of advice you could give them? Like how to start the career path?
Well, I think you guys said it early on. It starts with a license. You have to even think about it. You have to get a real estate license. There's a lot of different aspects that you can get into in real estate. You have to choose kind of like the residential, commercial route, and then within there, find a good company that has training, and or a mentor that can help you. I think that was, one of the biggest helps in my career. I mean, obviously, it's you at the beginning, middle, and the end of the day. Like you have to show up, and you have to perform, and you have to take all the risks, and you have to put in all the time. But if you have good direction and good mentors that can guide you and help you, then you can get there in a faster way.
Are you mentoring anybody right now?
Yeah, I have, almost everyone in my office. So, yeah, so I mean, it's not like, so it's like, that's why I say coach, so when you look at leadership, there's, I've studied, kind of the leadership models, and, you can do, managing or mentoring or coaching or advising, and, managing it's kind of like what most employees have, where you have to kind of like, dangle the carrot and hit them with a stick to do their job, and kind of, whereas coaching, it's more like helping them get to where they want to go. And a big part of that is trying to define where that is. So to me, that's the fun part. So when I want someone's success more than they want it for themselves, that's the hard part of what I do. right? If there's someone that is self-motivated and they want to grow, it's a pleasure for a coach. I don't know if you guys play sports, but I mean, it's a similar thing. I mean, like no one really likes to go to practice and do all the things that you do in practice to get yourself in shape, but you really do it for catching that ball at the end on the end zone, or making that shot, or hitting that home run with 2 strikes, or that's really what you do it for, and all the work that you put into it is for that outcome. So from a coaching standpoint, and you have people that want to grow and develop, then it's a pleasure. And so that's why I say I don't really work. So most everyone in my organization, I do that with. I coach and mentor.
And what do you think the best way to be successful is in this generation now that social media is so popular? Because it's probably so different from when you were younger.
It is, and I think it is, and I think it's the ability to utilize both. And there's going to be some pathways and career pathways that are going to be non-essential, right? Because it's going to be taken over by technology. So to find, and then there's going to be in some, so what we do, you can look at auction platforms and electronically to be able to do what we do. But ultimately, what we're dealing with are two different clients, buyers and sellers who are looking to acquire or sell, and they have two different agendas, right? The buyer wants the least amount, pay for the least amount of money, and the seller wants the most they can get, and we become the intermediary between them. Similar to if you look at law, if you had a plaintiff and a defendant, they have a dispute, and you just put them in a room and say, or put them on a chat room and say, you guys go figure it out. Very few. So you're going to go through, and someone's going to represent you. So there's certain things, like you can't go get a haircut online.
Yeah.
There's certain things that, but I think technology, if you use it, and you get ahead of it, and you see the emerging, career paths that you can take, I think that's going to be the future. Like AI is that's gonna take over. So the more you can be, in that lane, that's where it's all going.
Have you took advantage of AI at all in your company?
We do have, but a lot of it's outsourced. So it's like the companies that we align with, have platforms that we can plug into along the line. So there's a lot of, we talked about, being able to texting and being able to communicate and connect with people in a way, and there's bots that do that now, and it's just stuff that wasn't even considered, not even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's changing quickly.
Mrs. White is really good at teaching us about AI. She lets us use it in our class, but she teaches us how to use it in ways that will help us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, why fight it?
Yeah.
It's, I think that, well, I know with the writing of papers and stuff like that, but now there's like technology that can find that out, right?
Yeah, there is.
So it's like, it's a double-edged sword on the technology side.
You can always find a way around that technology that like stops it.
Right. Yeah, but I think that that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. It might be a little old school as far as going to college. That I think a lot of it is more of the perseverance. The socialization of it, and being able to connect with people. Well, we're always going to communicate, right? Whether it's written or whether it's verbal. But I think that to have those fundamentals down is important, and you can lose some of that stuff along the way if you don't use the technology properly. If you use it to circumvent, the basic skills that you need.
I feel like a lot of businesses are going to incorporate AI into their company.
Yeah, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. I mean, you look at the true innovators, the Elon Musks and those, and they're saying that it's kind of scary in some ways.
Yeah.
But there's, I heard today that someone was saying that for, every skilled labor jobs that go away, like people retire from, there's only 2 replacing them. So, at some point in time, that's going to become like, to be a plumber or to be, a carpenter or like AI is not going to replace that kind of stuff. And so the demand for that stuff is going to be greater, right? And if you live in a society where there's supply and demand, if there's lower supply of skilled labor, and that's the pathway that you want to go, or have a company that does that, and then the demand is there, then if there's more technology driven people, that's going to be harder to find jobs and have a career path, because if there's you got to find that lane.
The only negative is that it takes a lot of people's jobs away. But
yes,
yeah. But like you said, you have to pick a career path that it can't take away.
Well, it's like that's just evolution, right? And things are always going to change and evolve, and that's where you want to kind of be there. So it's going to take people's jobs away in certain aspects, but it's going to create jobs in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, for as you guys are coming into kind of like the workforce, you want to find where that trend is and try to get ahead of that. Like, I don't know how many times you go into McDonald's and actually talk to a person versus go to the kiosk, and right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's going to be taken away.
What do you think? Do you have a hard time with your work life and personal life? Because I feel like that there's a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people who take all their time to work and away from their family and the stuff that's into their personal enjoyments.
Yep.
How do you feel about that?
I think that there's, and I would agree with that to an extent, but it kind of go back to like the sacrifice side of it, right? And there's a balance that you have to try. There's a trade-off, right? I mean, if of course everyone loves to be with their family, and if that's all you ever did, and no one ever worked, then everyone would be living on the streets and being hungry. So it's so now I have to like find a balance where the work side of it comes in. And so for me, I spent a lot of time working, and as you get busier and busier, your ability to manage time becomes crucial. So like, I was always at every sporting event, every soccer game, every baseball game. I coached the kids growing up, and because I enjoyed that part, and so I made time for those. Was I home for every dinner? No, right there. So that's where you have to kind of trade on some things, like be the things that you deem to be important, or and then there's going to be times when you can't be there. So
what do you think the biggest challenge you faced growing up and trying to be where you are now?
Well, for me was my self-imposed limits. Right? It's yourself, and I think it's it's the same thing with trying to find your passion. Like, how do you know your passion until you do it, right? And so a lot of times it's like when you're trying new things, there's a confidence level there that like whether you have like this self-doubt, these self-imposed limits that you put on yourself.
So are you saying, does self-imposed limit mean that you're negative to your limitations? You're negative when you commit a goal?
Yeah, you kind of question. Yeah, you question whether you can, or whether you can do it. And it's I kind of as far as I studied like leadership, and you look at championship behavior, I use Tiger Woods as an example. Like Tiger Woods never stood on the first tee of a tournament, wondering whether he was going to make the cut or right. He always envisioned himself holding the trophy on Sunday afternoon before he even started the golf tournament.
Is that who you looked up to,
And,
Tiger Woods?
I mean, I look, just champions, and I mean, you could go through, all the different champions that there are, and that's a different mentality. And so the different, I think the difference is that they thought of themselves as champions before they ever won anything, right? And a lot of us are waiting to have levels of success to believe that we are at that level, right? So we need to have the evidence to support the growth as we're growing, versus having the champion mentality is that I'm a champion before I've even stepped on the court.
Well, there's two sides to that. There's being confident and being cocky, because some people are cocky as well and say that and mean it in a different way.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, it's, so if Tiger Woods was, to be a hockey player, and and he never put on a skate before, then, and he was overconfident about that, then his skill set wouldn't line up, right? So there definitely has to be a level of skill, but skill level, and where do you get skill level from? That's the practice part of it. You have to practice, and the more you practice, the more your skill level. But it's for the end result. You don't practice just for the sake of practicing, right? You do it for a longer game, a bigger purpose, and that championship mentality is ingrained in those. So that's the thing that I do from a coaching standpoint, is try to draw that out, that championship behavior before they actually have the results to show that.
And when did you have that switch that just turned on, where your positivity started coming out?
For me, it was after I did it the more traditional way. Like, I had to achieve certain levels to then believe that I could be at that level.
Yeah.
Right. So and that's where I was kind of like, I had to prove myself to be a champion before I was a champion, where the true champion is already the champion in their mind. It's not the cockiness of it. It's the self-belief.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I can do this. And that's what compels them, or, gets them to where they want to go in a faster way, because they know that they can do it.
What was the reason that you weren't that positive? You had that negative mindset?
Probably kind of, how I grew up, that everything, I had to prove everything before the results came.
Yeah.
Right. I just think that, a lot of it is creating a belief structure, right? And once you have, a lot of it has to do with that effort level and that sacrifice. Like, if you're making the effort and the sacrifice, and obviously the skill sets, and you can learn the skill set along the way, but you have to have some natural skill set. Like my son is a great kid, and he tried sales like I did, and he was introverted. He was not a good salesperson, right? And he didn't like it, and now he's a special agent with the DEA, right? And so that's not something that he started with, but that's something that, through analyzing his own abilities and what he wanted, and now he's doing exactly what he loves to do, and he's really good at it.
Were you ever an introvert, or were you always an extrovert?
I was probably more extroverted.
Yeah.
But I was, it's funny. It's outwardly, right? So I was extrovert, and I didn't have a problem like meeting and talking with people, but I always felt inside I was like a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm a forced extrovert. I'm not the life of the party kind of a guy, but I will, interact with people more than than introverts would.
And that was before you got into real estate. You were like that.
Yeah. Yep. So I think where the extroversion part of me is that I'm very inquisitive, and I like to understand how things work and people, right? And so, like, if if you think about yourself ever meeting someone for the first time, there's kind of like an awkwardness there, right? And so, but what do? You ask questions to find out about, like, where are you from, what do you do,
Yeah.
right? And so you get those, and so, like, I was truly inquisitive. If you're asking those questions as, as just, as questions that you are scripted, like, oh, I'm supposed to ask this question.
Yeah.
You don't really care about the answer. You're just asking the question. Like, for me, I was genuinely and authentically inquisitive. So if you're inquisitive, it's easier to be able to interact with people and be interested, right? So a lot of times you see extroverts are trying to be interesting, right? I think that if you try to be interested in someone or in something, okay, there's a natural progression there that's going to want you to find out more, whether it's a career path or it's a person, right? To find out more about that than just going through the motions.
I totally agree with you. Before we finish
Yeah.
up, what's the biggest piece of advice that you'd give to my generation, the upcoming entrepreneurs or upcoming people who want to be successful in life?
I mean, I think it's just be active, try things, I think that put your phones down. You probably hear that from older people,
Yeah.
right? But I think that the they say people make the world go round, right? And I don't think that's ever going to change, right? Because there's always going to be humans on the earth, until there's not. And AI can come and go and be advanced, but to the degree you have the ability to have the human skills, I think that will bode well. So, in any interaction, whether you're introverted or extroverted, whatever career path is, there's going to be some level of interaction with people, and I think that the more you can seek that is gonna foretell, what you do and how you progress.
A lot of people around my age, communication skills just went super downhill because of TikTok and all the social media.
Yep.
And everybody's attention span got very short.
It is, and you know what? And you say how am I adapting? Maybe not in this interview as much, but I try to speak more in bullet points.
Yeah.
Because I know that's what people are attuned to, especially in the younger generation. So, like, as being a good coach and a good mentor and a good leader, it's not just my way or the highway. I have to adapt to the people that I am working with. So you have to teach how people learn. And from a coaching standpoint, you look at, even looking at and the way people coach nowadays. The old style coaches,
screaming,
are having a harder time connecting. Yeah, they have a harder time connecting versus being able to. And so I think that's kind of like what I was saying. So what's the biggest advice is your ability to connect with people. Right. And as new generations are coming along, okay, and they've had different experiences, whether it's social media or TikTok and all that kind of stuff, and their attention span, it is what it is. You have to figure out how to adapt to that, right? And you can't. It's not like you're going to change it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure that out and then adapt to what they're doing to be effective.
I agree, because nowadays podcasts are very popular, but the way to get out there is to post shorts, like little reels and clip bits of people talking, because nobody wants to sit through a whole podcast. That's the truth.
Well, I mean, in the younger generation.
Yeah, but all the adults are listening to podcasts to learn, because I feel like that's their generation's way of learning.
I think that and I think that it depends on, I have younger people, but call them in their 30s. Obviously, a lot older than you, but a lot of them will listen to full podcasts. And I think that's how you learn. Snippets are good, but I don't know to the depth that you really can grasp concepts and ideas, in a snippet.
I agree.
Yeah. So your ability to do that is going to be dependent on how effective that you are communicating. And it's not how you're communicating, it's how you're being received in the communication.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. So Lucas is really thankful as well, but he got logged out. His connection.
Yeah, that's no worries.
But thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I actually learned a lot.
All right. It was my pleasure, and thanks for having me. It was probably more of a pleasure for me than it was for you guys.
And I'm going to get you a shirt, all right? I'm going to give it to Miss White.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I'll wear it proudly.
Yeah?
We'll promote it for you.
All right, perfect. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, Tanner. Thank you so much. Bye.